All right, let's go. Here's side 1A of Flight of the Stormcaller, Swift Departure. It's a lot to read, but you can pause it and read it if you want. Let me just explain what's happening here. There are 7 quest cards. Put all the ones that have A's in one pile and the ones that have C's in the other. And then we're going to quest against quest cards B. And as we make progress, we're trying to catch up with the Stormcaller, who is questing against ones that have D. If we clear a quest stage, we advance. So we just cleared stage 1, and now we are at stage 2. And since we are both at stage 2, we have now caught up with the Stormcaller. Any threat in the Stormcaller's staging area is going to now be added to the threat in our staging area because we're at the same stage. But the Stormcaller makes progress every round, and eventually the Stormcaller may advance to their stage 3. Since we are no longer at the same stage, we need to try to catch up again. Only when we're at the same stage can we interact with the Stormcaller and cards in the Stormcaller's area. So it's a chase. If we have caught up with the Stormcaller stage and then we manage to clear that stage before the Stormcaller advances to their next one, we have won the game because we have officially caught the Stormcaller. We're also going to have to deal with the boarding mechanic, so you're going to create a Corsair's deck. Make sure you put in the Corsair enemies from the Flight of the Stormcaller encounter set. Okay, let's look at the Stormcaller itself. It's 50 engagement, 26618. It's a Corsair ship. It has boarding 2. It cannot have attachments, so you can't force snare a ship. And when the Stormcaller advances to the next quest stage, it gets returned to the Stormcaller's area. So that means you have to engage it again and have another boarding. If it ever leaves play, we win the game. So you can win this quest by combat. If you destroy the Stormcaller, you win. That's difficult, but not impossible to do in a solo game. Okay, we also have the staging area with a rolling seas, so 4 threat, 3 progress, and we have to shift our heading off course to travel there. So that's going to be in the staging area. Here's where we start. So we're going to be at 1B. It's 8 quest points. It has sailing, and then at the end of the quest phase, if we are off course, we need to move 2 progress from our staging area to the Stormcaller's quest stage. So that sucks. You don't want that Stormcaller advancing. So we want to try to clear this stage as fast as possible to get to our stage 2 because the Stormcaller already starts at stage 2. So full sail ahead, 12 quest points. If we are off course, the Stormcaller gets +2 threat. No more than 4 damage can be placed on the Stormcaller each round, and then forced, at the end of the round, we discard the top card of the encounter deck. The Stormcaller places threat on this stage equal to its threat plus the threat of the discarded card. So that is how the Stormcaller is going to try to advance through their quest stages and stay ahead of us and escape. We get some ships of our own, so we get to prepare a fleet with the Dream Chaser. It's a 5/4/4/18 Greyhaven's ship. It's immune, it's Sentinel. The Dream Chaser can always be committed to the sailing test, even if you are not the first player, and it counts as 2 characters when committed to a sailing test. If it's destroyed, we lose the game, and if you don't remember how sailing tests work or how ship mechanics work, please click the video that I have made that explains all these mechanics. There should be a link in the description. Okay, we also get to pick a second ship in a solo game, so I have chose the Narlinia. It's 3/3/5/16. Greyhaven ship, it's immune, Sentinel, and I get to reduce the cost of the first ally I play each round by 1. If it's destroyed, we lose the game. Okay, helping us, we have Arwen, 9 threat, 3/1/2/3, and I can discard a card to add a resource to a Noldor or Aragorn's resource pool. Very, very, very cool. Arwen is hard to not play with when you're wanting to run Spirit. Speaking of Spirit, we're also running one of the new heroes, Círdan the Shipwright, 12 threat, 4/2/2/4. You get to draw an additional card at the beginning of the resource phase, and then after drawing cards at the beginning of the resource phase, we have to discard one of the drawn cards. We also have Galdor. God, I love this hero. He's 9 threat lore, 2/2/1/4, Noldor, Galdor of the Havens. Response: after drawing your setup hand, instead of taking a mulligan, you may discard any number of cards from your hand and then draw back up to your hand size. And then if you ever have a completely empty hand, you get to redraw 6 cards. It's great. It's absolutely great. That is limit once per game, of course. So when you're playing a Galdor deck, you should know what cards you hope to keep in your opening hand. All your cards should be good because you put them in your deck. But what I really would like to see is Narya, that is his ring. I'd like to see Steward of Gondor. I'd like to see To the Sea, To the Sea. Those are the 3 cards I'd like to have in my hand. And hopefully in my discard pile, I will be putting an Elven Light and a Glorfindel. So that's why Noldor is so great. There's cards that can be played out of your discard pile. And Galdor on your opening hand lets you throw some cards in your discard pile. So you can get pretty lucky. discarding the cards you want to discard, and oh, okay, there. Holy crap. Okay, this is great. So I got Steward and Narya, and then I also get to discard these 4 cards. One of them is Glorfindel, and one of them is Elven Light. That is pretty incredible. I don't have To the Sea. I also don't have Light of Valinor, but that was pretty amazing. Okay, another Elven Light, an ally, Elrond's Council, and Test of Will. But I'm very, very happy to get the Ring and Steward in my opening hand. Okay, so now we get 2 more cards. You can see how fast you go through the deck. So the odds are you're going to find your combo pieces very fast. So I drew 2 cards per Círdan's ability, and then I discarded 1. And then I played Adaron's Runes, drew 2 more cards. I'm discarding Elven Light. And yeah, just flying through the deck. You just go through so many cards. All right, Narya. Attached to Círdan the Shipwright or Gandalf, that character gains the leadership icon, and then you can exhaust the ring and the attached character to ready 2 allies. Those allies get +1 defense and attack until the end of the phase. So that's going to be very helpful when we get to some combat. So that, of course, is going to go on Círdan. It costs 2 neutral resources, so I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do this. I need to get a second resource on Círdan, so he'll have 2 resources. So I'm going to discard this Sailor. Oh man, I think I'm going to discard Elrond's Council. I need to discard a card. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I debated for a little bit. I'm going to use Arwen's ability to discard that card, and I get to pass a resource to a Noldor character. So now he now has 2 resources, so that lets him play Steward. And then, of course, Steward immediately gives him the 2 resources back. Let's spend one of those resources to pull an Elven Light out of the discard pile, and that draws me a card. Elven Light can only be played from your discard pile, and when you spend the resource to put Elven Light back in your hand, you get to draw a card, and the card I drew was To the Sea. So that is one of the combo pieces I was missing. Now that I have Elven Light in my hand, let's play Daron's Runes. I have a good card to discard, and we get an Elven Jeweler and a Silver Harp. Okay, I can discard Elven Light to that Daron's Runes. The Elven Jeweler, you can discard 2 cards to put it into play. That's an action. You can do that in any phase. Silver Harp, once you discard a card from your hand, you can exhaust Silver Harp and put that card back into your hand. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'd like to get an ally into play, because the first ally I play gets a cost reduction of 1. So I'm just really debating what I want to do here. Holding on to that spirit resource for a Test of Will is nice, but I think I'm going to spend it on the Sailor of Lune. So when it's committed to the quest, it gets +1 willpower if the top card is an event and it can't be damaged. But I'm actually going to commit it to a sailing test. So let's go off course. The Dream Chaser counts as 2 characters. We get to discard 3 cards, and there we go. We had the success symbols on the first card. So we are back on course. So that's great. And now let's commit to the quest. We need to make 8 progress. This quest, you just go full sail ahead, I guess. I mean, I am not waiting around. I don't want to sit at this stage for any longer than I need to. This is actually a great card to reveal. So it's Doom 2, and you attach it to the quest. And then if you're off course, you have to damage your allies. But we're going to make 8 progress. So that attached to the quest, and it gets discarded. So it only is Doom 2, which is fine. That's great. So we advance to stage 2A. It says we need to search the encounter deck and discard pile for a Swift Raider and add it to the staging area. Then we give the encounter deck a shuffle. Okay, let's look at side 2B. So full sail ahead, sailing. No more than 8 progress can be placed here each round. If you are off course, no more than 4 progress can be placed here each round. If you defeat the stage and the Stormcaller is at its stage 2, you have caught up with the Stormcaller and win the game. Otherwise, we would advance to stage 3. So we need to make these 12 progress before the Stormcaller advances to its stage 3. So let's find the Swift Raider. Now, I don't have a list of the most annoying enemies in the game, but this would be up there. I mean, this might even be number 1. This enemy sucks. It's a Corsair ship with 38 engagement, 3 threat, 5 attack, 4 defense, 8 hit points. It has boarding 2, so when it engages you, you have to get 2 pirates. And then, while Swift Raider is in the staging area, it gains Forced after a player commits 4 or more characters to a sailing test or the quest. Swift Raider engages that player. It's just so hard in solo because you're basically going to have to engage this thing if you want to make enough progress at any point. And then you're going to be suddenly engaged with 3 enemies. You're committing characters to the sailing test. You're committing characters to the quest. It's just a lot. It's a lot to deal with when you advance to stage 2. But I have Narya, so we have a plan. All right, so at the end of the round, everybody ready? I raise my threat, and then you discard the top card. Oh, yuck. Okay, and it was 4 threat, so that stinks. So that 4 threat plus the Stormcaller's 2 threat goes on its stage 2, and it has made 6 of its 12 progress. All right, we're going to collect our resources. Círdan gets an extra one. I draw 2 cards. I have to discard one of them. I'm going to get rid of the Test of Will. And now let's decide how we're going to handle this round. So first, to the sea. So you exhaust it, and then you discard any number of cards and reduce the cost of the next Noldor ally you play by the number of cards you discarded to a minimum of 1. I'm going to spend a spirit resource to pull Elven Light out of my discard pile, and that lets me draw a card. Ooh, there we go. And I get Light of Valinor. Okay, so I have found all my combo pieces. So let's spend 1 so Círdan doesn't exhaust to commit to the quest. Let's discard this Elven Light to Arwen's ability, and we will kick a resource over to Círdan because he is Noldor. So now I have 1 lore resource and 2 spirit. I can play this healer for 1 because my first ally costs 1 less, so you can discard up to 2 cards around and heal 1 damage for each card discarded on any character. And now I'm going to play Silver Harp. So Silver Harp costs 2, and you can exhaust it as a response after you discarded a card, and you get to pull that card back into your hand. So that's okay. I was trying to figure out if I could have got Glorfindel into play out of my discard pile, but I actually can't. But I have a better plan. I think what I'm going to do, since I have these 3 cards in my hand, I think I'm just going to play the Elven Jeweler. Elven Jeweler can come into play by having you discard 2 cards. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to discard those 2 cards, put in Elven Jeweler, and my hand is empty. So I get to trigger Galdor's once per game ability and draw 6 cards. So we get another ally, another Elven Light. Oh, I'm glad to see that location control. And yeah, okay. So I got some decent cards there, and I'm going to be able to draw Elven Lights next turn, and things are looking really good. This deck is working really well. So I'm really happy with what's happened here so far. Able to trigger Galdor's ability on turn 2, which is really awesome. I want to point out here, Galdor's ability is an action, and the Silver Harp is a response. So when I discarded those 2 cards, I couldn't have triggered Galdor before I triggered the Silver Harp, because I would have to trigger the Silver Harp in response to discarding those cards. You can't take an action and then trigger a response to something that happened prior to that action. So if I had triggered the Silver Harp, I would have put a card back into my hand and never had a chance to trigger Galdor's action. Okay, let's go sailing. I only want to send 3 characters. We're off course. 1, 2, there we go. I'm successful, so we are back on course. So I can make the full 8 progress if I want to. It's dangerous to send more than 3 characters, though, but I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to basically just try to just power through this quest as fast as possible. I'll send everybody except the Narlinia, and that can defend the Swift Raider, and then I can use Narya on Círdan to ready 2 allies so I can defend the Corsairs that we get. So let's engage that Swift Raider, get the threat out of the staging area. Okay. Southron Sailor. While he's engaged a few, each ship enemy contributes its threat to the staging area. Okay, well, that didn't work. And then the second one we get is a Vicious Marauder. So he makes you discard a random card from your hand, and then you place a resource on him equal to the cost of that card. And every time he attacks, you deal damage to characters in play equal to the cost of the card you discarded. But hey, it was a 0, so that's pretty good. And then I can trigger the Silver Harp and pull that Elrond's Council back into my hand. All right, so I have 3 threat from the Swift Raider, 2 threat from the Stormcaller, because we're at the same stage, and we get either shift your heading off course or deal 1 damage to each exhausted character. Well, I have put a lot of characters in this deck that have at least 2 hit points, so I can survive this treachery. So everybody's going to live. The Sailor of Lune does take damage because he's not committed to the quest. He was sent sailing, so he does take a damage. I was just reading his text. So everybody that's exhausted is going to take a hit, but we added no threat, so we're going to make 5 progress, and then I remember I have Elrond's Council, and so I end up playing Elrond's Council and making 1 more progress with that. So I do that in a minute. All right, let's deal out these shadow cards. And we got some combat to deal with here. This is going to be a little rough. There I go. Elrond's Council, dropping my threat by 3. And then I would have just targeted one of the characters committed to the quest to get that extra willpower. All right, before combat begins proper, I think I'm going to discard a card to do some healing. I'm going to heal my healer. So you discard up to 2 cards, and you can heal damage for each card discarded. So let's heal her. And now the Narlinia is going to defend against the Swift Raider. 5 against 5. Attacking enemy gets +2 if we're at the same stage as the Stormcaller. Okay, we are. So he takes... She. Ships are she. She takes 2 damage. And then we're going to trigger Círdan and Narya to ready 2 allies. And I debated for a while which 2 allies I wanted to ready here. I end up readying the Sailor of Lune and the Elven Jeweler. They're each going to get +1 defense. But I am kind of resigning myself that I might lose them both. That's okay. Next round I should be able to get Glorfindel in and maybe another ally. But I did debate for quite a while how I was going to handle combat with these 2 attacks coming, and I knew I couldn't attack back. I just was basically trying to decide if I'm going to lose 2 allies, because there could be a boost for the shadow, which 2 allies I wanted to lose. All right, let's do this first attack. No shadow, so the Sailor of Lune is in fact dead. And now the Elven Jeweler is going to defend, and it's either shift your heading off course or treat this attack as undefended. Well, okay, I can treat it as undefended, so I can put 2 damage on Círdan. There is a shadow that increases the attack by the stage that the Stormcaller is at, so that would be a +2, so that's why I just didn't take it undefended to start with, because obviously that would have killed any of my heroes. So you always want to defend, because that shadow can definitely take out your heroes if left undefended. All right, so let's do the Stormcaller thing. We discard the top card. It was a treachery, so we only placed 2 progress on the Stormcaller's stage, and now we have a chance. We have a chance to win. And that's why I rushed this quest. I just try to go for the quick win. Otherwise, a long, dragged-out fight could go either way. Okay, and I get the Evening Star in my discard pile, and I draw Daron's Runes. So Círdan drew me 2 cards. I don't know why he's exhausted. That should have been removed. I forgot to remove it. All right, so I have the Silver Harp, I have lots of resources, I have to the sea, and I'm just going to try to get as much willpower in play as possible. I want to try to make the 6 progress I need and win. I'm just going for the win here. I should be able to make it. So I'm just looking to see what I have in my discard pile. I have 2 Elven Lights. I have 1 copy of the Evening Star. So if I play a copy of the Evening Star, you get to place 2 progress and then 2 more progress for each other copy of the Evening Star you have in your discard pile. And my Daron's Runes draws me another Evening Star. So if I play the one in hand, I can place 6 progress in pairings of 2. So I can definitely clear the 4 threat Rolling Seas in staging. So I'm going to discard a card to Arwen's ability and kick a resource over to Galdor. So he now has 2 resources to pay for the Evening Star in the quest phase. All right, let's now decide, how am I going to get Glorfindel into play, and can I get any other allies into play? So Noldor decks require a lot of planning. It's not intuitive a lot of the times, the best way to handle things. So I'm going to spend a resource to pull Elven Light back into my hand. That draws me another card. I can now trigger to the sea, and right now Glorfindel can be played out of my discard pile. That's an ability he has on his card text. And because he would be my first ally, he's only going to cost 4. So I could just discard 3 cards and only pay 1, or I could discard 4 cards to the sea, and then Narlinia would make him cost 0. But I decide to discard 3 cards, and that means Glorfindel is going to cost 1 resource. So let's pay that. So here he is. He's got amazing stats, and you can discard a card to ready him limit once per phase. So that's really great. So I can commit him to a sailing test and then ready him and then commit him to the quest and then ready him in the travel phase. So then he'll be ready going into combat, and then you can trigger that ability in the combat phase to give him a ready. So very good card in a Noldor deck. Very good card in any deck if you can get him into play. All right, 1 resource left on Círdan, 2 resources on Galdor to play the Evening Star. I don't have a card I can play in my hand with Círdan's resource. So I think we're just about ready to try to win this thing. I'm going to spend that one resource and pull back Elven Light, just so I have one more card to discard to Glorfindel. Ooh, there's Lords of the Eldar. So that gives your Noldor characters a boost. It can only be played from your discard pile. Costs 3. Really cool end game card, especially if you can get your deck down to nothing, because after you play it, it goes on the bottom of your deck and you can just keep playing it every round. All right, I'm going to send 3 characters on the sailing test. This is an important one. All right, we got to make it because I got to get on course so I can make 8 progress. Boom, there we go. Got it. All right, I'm on course so I can make my 8 progress. Okay, so now that I know I can win this turn if I send enough characters on the quest, I'm going to discard Lords of the Eldar to ready Glorfindel, and we're just going to send as much willpower as possible. So there's 3, there's 5, there's 3, Galdor is 2, Círdan should not be exhausted, so there's 4 more, and Arwen is going to be 3. That's going to give me a total of 20. Look out, Corsairs! I got to move this helm. There we go. All right, so 20 against 4 plus 2 from the Stormcaller, so 20 against 6, and the card we reveal is Calm Waters. It was smooth sailing, folks. No problem. Let's even make it more decisive. So I'm going to play the Evening Star. I can place 3 groups of 2, so I'm going to clear that 4 threat location, and then I'll put 2 progress on the Calm Waters. I even have an Elrond's Council in my hand if I remembered to play it, but I don't. So we're only up against 3 threat. We needed to make 8 progress, which we totally do, and actually we only needed to make 6 progress. So now we have placed our 12 progress while the Stormcaller is still at its stage 2, which means we have caught the Stormcaller, and that is a victory. I hope you enjoyed that one. This is definitely a rush quest in a solo game. You don't want to take too much time if you're trying to catch it. If you're doing the combat way, then you have to play a little differently. You need to build up a board state so you can take down the Stormcaller. But doing it with the willpower and catching up with the Stormcaller, just rush it, play as fast as you can, and make as much progress as you can. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that one. Take care. Bye-bye.